Very much. Dr. Beccy Cooper.
Thank you, Mrs. Harrison. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. It's been a really interesting debate so far, and I thank the honourable member for taking so many interventions. It was incredibly interesting to hear the discussion. So, as a public health consultant, I am coming at this from a particular point of view. I'm a public health consultant, and I have spent many years working with my colleagues and understanding how big tobacco works. So I'm putting that on the record right now. This debate is both timely and important. We have reached a point in this country where advertising of gambling products is so ubiquitous that it is now almost unheard of to see a sporting event without it, or a gambling-free advert break on the telly, or children's YouTube watching being punctuated by colourful, cheerful ads for thinly disguised gambling opportunities. And social media algorithms, well, they're fodder for gambling promo. So I would like everybody to now try a thought experiment. I don't know if this has been done in Westminster Hall before, but stick with me. So replay what I have just said about advertising everywhere in life. Sports events, telly ads, children's YouTube, social media feeds. But instead of gambling, replace this with alcohol or smoking. And take a minute later this evening to consider how it would feel if we were pushing booze and fags, particularly to children, at any and every opportunity with very little regulation. The fact is, of course, that this was pretty standard fare before public health took on big tobacco, with an increasing body of evidence that smoking is addictive and causes lung cancer. This is now a widely agreed fact, and even the most libertarian colleagues are hard-pressed to make the case that advertising smoking as a desirable life choice is in the best interest of anybody. Now, alcohol remains more nuanced for many reasons. From a health point of view, whilst it is undoubtedly an addictive product and has the capacity to cause serious health harms and early death, it is also possible to enjoy alcohol and perhaps even benefit from the antioxidants in red wine. We recognise that and have produced guidelines on consumption levels. Gambling is an addictive product. This is an incontrovertible health fact, backed up by a large body of evidence and a growing body of evidence. But as with alcohol, there is a spectrum of addiction across gambling products, which again is well evidenced. So, how do current advertising regulations reflect these facts? Well, the short answer is not very well. The Gambling Harms APPG and Peers for Gambling Reform's recent report, as my honourable friend has said, brings together academic research, clinical expertise and lived experience. And its conclusion is clear. The current system of regulating gambling advertising is not working. Gambling advertising is now pervasive across television, sport, social media and online platforms, reaching audiences far beyond its intended adult market. Evidence from the Gambling Commission shows that 79% of children and young people recall seeing gambling advertising across multiple channels. Emerging forms of advertising, including content marketing and influencer promotion, blur the line between entertainment and promotion, making risks harder to identify, particularly for younger audiences. And I just want to touch briefly on the legal and illegal markets conversations. I absolutely hear about illegal markets and needing to regulate them. It was a conversation we had in the big tobacco world for years and years and years. And the answer is it's not either or, it's both. You've got to regulate the legal industry and you've got to regulate the illegal industry. Talking about one or the other simply isn't going to solve the problem. Furthermore, of course.
If something is already illegal, you don't regulate it. Would you agree with that point?
Thank my honourable friend. The query is, if something's already illegal... Let me see if I can answer it, and please tell me if I'm not. In terms of our experience with big tobacco, there was a big illegal market in a black market, and we brought in various rules, various regulations. We got our environmental health officers on it. We got customs on it. We absolutely were able to look at the black market in tobacco alongside regulating the legal industry. It is perfectly possible to do in this world of online advertising. I think the honourable member referred to the Wild West. I would query that this is probably the Wild West, actually, and we have to be very, very intelligent in the way that we are looking at regulations. It is possible. It needs better brains than me to figure out how to do it digitally, but it absolutely is possible. So moving on, evidence shows that 1/4 of people who gamble have done so in direct response to advertising, rising to almost 4/5 among those at highest risk.
Well, Honourable Lady of West. I felt it's only fair to raise the same points with the Honourable Lady, who has been written to twice by the Gambling Commission for misusing their statistics, and also been written to by the Office for Statistics Regulation for the misuse of statistics. So I'm just wondering why we'd be listening to her numbers now. Are they right?
I thank the honourable member for those interventions, for the intervention. I am a public health consultant, and I am still licensed to practice as a public health consultant, and I am trained in epidemiology, statistics, and I have professional exams in both of those issues. We have had email correspondence from the people that the Honourable Lady mentions, and we have replied to that evidence stating why the statistics that we are using are absolutely the best evidence that we have. I'm happy to share the correspondence if that's helpful. So, gambling advertising is not passive. It's a core driver of market growth, with the industry spending, as we've heard, up to £1.5 to £2 billion annually on advertising, marketing and sponsorship. The cumulative effect is a system that embeds gambling into everyday life, increasing the likelihood and severity of harm. And like tobacco, gambling is not just an individual choice issue, but a product designed and marketed to drive addiction. So, what should we do? Firstly, gambling advertising should be understood as a public health issue, not simply a matter of consumer choice or industry regulation. And in fact, the World Health Organization has called for restrictions on gambling advertising, marketing and sponsorship as part of a public health response. I am very grateful that the Minister is taking the time to consider these issues on behalf of DCMS this afternoon, but I am of the opinion that gambling sits squarely in the world of health, alongside other addictive products, and the responsibility for this area should be transferred to the Department of Health. To address gambling as a public health issue requires moving beyond incremental industry-led measures towards clear, enforceable statutory regulation. Our current approach continues to rely heavily on lacklustre and ineffective self-regulation. Despite existing restrictions, children continue to be widely exposed to gambling advertising across television, sport and social media. So Parliament has previously taken a precautionary approach in areas such as tobacco, alcohol and junk food marketing, where there is credible evidence of harm. Gambling advertising meets the same threshold, given its demonstrated links to increased participation and harm. And other countries, as we've heard, including Italy, Spain, Belgium, the Netherlands and Australia, have already introduced stronger restrictions based on similar evidence. The UK's continued reliance on limited and voluntary measures has left it an outlier rather than a leader in protecting public health. And the government already has powers under existing legislation, including the Gambling Act 2005, to take further action. The issue is no longer whether change is possible, but whether there is the political will to act decisively. Public concern is already there, with around 2/3 of the public worried about the volume of gambling advertising and its impact on children. There is now a strong case for more fundamental reform, including a new Gambling Act that reflects the realities of today's digital and highly commercialised gambling environment. Ultimately, this is a question of priorities. Whether to protect public health, particularly children and young people, or to allow the continued expansion of a system that contributes to harm. In summary, Mrs Harris, there is a famous gambling industry tagline: when the fun stops, stop. I think that it is past time for us to acknowledge that gambling addiction is fun for no one, and exposure of our children to harmful, pernicious advertising from big gambling companies has to stop. Minister, there is no fun here. It is time to stop.
Hear, hear, hear.